All right, here we are again. Words of affirmation, lesson 1. Mark Twain said this. He says, I can live 2 months, he said, on a good compliment. That's Mark Twain. So 6 compliments a year would take him right through the year. It didn't take much to keep his love tank full, but I doubt if your spouse can live on that. So we want to give it a little more effort than once every couple of months. You know, Proverbs says that life and death are in the power of the tongue. Life and death are in the power of the tongue. James wrote about it, talked about the helm of a ship, that little rudder. Even though you have a great big ship, it's that rudder that turns the ship and it keeps it going. Another proverb says, an anxious heart weighs a man down, but a kind word cheers him up. So when someone gives you an honest compliment, that it just makes you feel really good. A job well done, a pat on the back, and said, hey, you did good. Or possibly, somebody dresses up and you say, hey, man, you look really sharp in that suit. Man, they felt 10 feet tall. Or you tell your wife, hey, you look really hot in that dress. You look really good. That's just really something, that makes their day. Giving a compliment to your spouse is better than threatening them or him or her or nagging on him or her. Nagging just tears it down. Remember, I said life and death are in the power of the tongue. So you have to watch about nagging or just, riding somebody and just, constantly bickering and complaining about their performance of whatever it is. You try an honest compliment. When your spouse does something well, give a compliment and see if it's being positive instead of a negative, and see if it doesn't motivate them to do it even more. Hey, man, when you get a compliment, you just feel 10 feet tall. You want to help them, somebody else. Now, I'm not talking about flattery, and I'm not talking about a lip service, but trying to find something that a person does well, your spouse, or even a child. We're going to be talking about children here too, and not patronizing them, but an honest compliment on something that they do well. I'll give you some examples in my life. Encouraging words. Let's talk about encouraging words. Rhonda encouraged me to start preaching and teaching again on this electronic media. This is not something I probably would have ever dreamed of doing. I'm an old-fashioned guy. I used to grab a Bible study chart, go into people's homes and teach Bible studies. But Rhonda encouraged me to start preaching and teaching with Facebook, and it has met with pretty good success, and a lot of people are blessed, and we want to continue to do that. I have a natural tendency to compliment and to teach, but it needed Rhonda to get me started again. And she said, you can reach more people on the electronic media than you can by on a chart or, just going to visit a person one by one. And so that's what I wanted to do. The guy may be the head of the household, according to the scriptures, but the woman is definitely the neck that turns the head and tells you which way to look and which way to go. I mean, there used to be an old saying, I remember, behind every successful man is a good successful woman, giving him some instructions and what to do. Her words gave me the courage to fulfill a promise that I had made to God some 20-some years ago. Dan and Deanna were young, and I told God, we had pastored for about 7 years. Some of you know that. And I told God, if you just let me raise my kids, work and raise my kids, I'll enter back into the ministry. And that's exactly what I did. And so when I got laid off from Hatfield, here's another example of encouraging words. When I got laid off from Hatfield, I went to the steel mill in Monessen, and I was running a boiler down there again on shift work. And that's shift work. If you ever work shift work, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's tough to work those shifts, and I really didn't enjoy it, but I did it because that's how I made a living. So First Energy called and contacted us and said, would you like to come back? Well, of course I would, because that would stretch my time with the company, and I'll get a better pension. But in order to come back to the company, you had to go back to college. to get a 2-year degree from a technical college, which was Fairmont State University, Fairmont State down in West Virginia, and also they were connected with the Pierpont Technical School. So I'm 55, 56 years old, and now I'm going to go back to college. That took some encouraging words from my wife to make it. So I do the process, go through all the things that we had to do to qualify. I quit my job, and they said, if you quit here at the steel mill, you cannot come back. So the door was closed. Okay, I got it. So I got to make it here in college. So I'm 55, 56 years old. I start the first week of college in August 2015, 2016, something like that. And fourth day into class, I am overwhelmed. We're talking about geometry. Listen, I haven't done geometry since Nixon was president, and that's been a long time ago. And then started trig and calc and all these other things, and it was an introduction to it. It's not like we were in depth, but it was definitely a challenge. And so I can remember that Thursday, started on a Monday, and that Thursday I come home, and Rhonda and the kids were out working in the yard when I got home. And I come home and I said, I can't do this. This is too much for me. I just can't do this. And, my wife said, I support you in whatever you do, Dan. I'm backing you up. And, she said those words, and I said, I can't let this girl down. I have to redouble my efforts. And those kind words motivated me, and the dad instinct. And this is, again, the power of words. She motivated me with those words, and I put my time in school. And not only did I put my time in school, but I actually graduated 2 years later as Student of the Year. Can you believe that? Student of the Year. From the first 4 days saying I can't do this till completing the 2-year degree, Student of the Year. So, but I kept after the guys. I was kind of like a dad to the other guys, making sure they got their homework done, make sure that they stayed on the straight and narrow. I used my influence as being an older guy to keep those guys on the straight and narrow too. So how we speak is important. What we speak is important, but the tone in which we speak is important. If you say, I love you, in a question mark, you don't feel loved. But if you say, hey, Ron, I love you, I've told her many times that, you want to say it with the correct tone. Hateful words can bring a lot of pain, and we can either judge when those words come, or we can forgive when those words come. Intimacy cannot be had until the judgment ends and forgiveness begins. So if you're going to be judgmental and you're going to be vengeful and vindictive, somebody hurts you with words, then you have to say, hey, I either got to let this thing go, or, because if I'm judgmental and want revenge, it's going to lead from bad to worse. So you've got to be forgiven. My wife and I, during this COVID crisis, COVID pneumonia that I had to take steroids, and they can make you tense and mess you up a little bit, emotionally. Rhonda loved me through my ramblings and my sharp tongue, so to speak, because she knew the healing process would end and the round of steroids would end. And I had to ask her to forgive me, and we moved on. And she helped me every step of the way in my COVID recovery. So, you have a decision that when somebody says something hateful to you, and it hurts and it digs deep, and the people that you love are the people that can hurt you the worst. It's not the stranger on the street. You can blow them off, but it's the people you love. But you have to make a decision. Am I going to get revenge, or am I going to forgive? And when you forgive, intimacy can start again. Okay, let's talk about some other words that you can speak that will help. And how about humble words? Love makes requests, not demands. Expressing desire and coming across it as a demand drives away intimacy. Being humble is something that you ask somebody to do something instead of demanding. The love tank is not filled when you make those demands. Don't make threats or demands. Make requests. That's something that just being a little humble will go a long way. Even at work, even if you're the boss, trying to be a little bit humble. And I'm not saying that you have to be mealy-mouthed and, that old 50s style leadership, that you came back from World War II and you gave commands and men jumped at your command and stuff like that. Hey, no, that's gone. I'm talking about in your marriage, having humble words and not being a commander. So here's another one, words that'll help. Words of appreciation. People who help us in our ministry are very much appreciated. We've got some great folks. We got a great piano player, and she comes from a great family. They both have a great lineage of hardworking, blue-collar, salt of the earth type people that they're just outstanding, and we appreciate them so much. So we speak words of appreciation, and I know that I can count on them, that they'll do more, that they will just help in this ministry to grow this ministry and influence people in this last day. So gratitude in this selfish world will go a long way. Words of gratitude, words of appreciation. And something I learned, you guys that maybe are managers or leaders, I've heard this before, that you praise in public, but you rebuke in private. So if you want to sing someone's praise, you do it in public. But if you got to rebuke somebody, pull them aside. Don't make a public spectacle of them. If it's something that's an honest mistake, and I'm not talking about willful destruction that's ongoing. But if someone makes a mistake, don't be so quick to condemn in front of everybody. That is so embarrassing to a person, to a child, maybe on a ball team or something like that they make a mistake. And you don't want to crush that child and just beride them and just hurt them in front of everybody, because it just doesn't do any good. So praise in public, rebuke in private. And these words will bring life to teammates, to children, to spouses especially. Praise in public, rebuke in private. Okay, well, that's the end of lesson 1. Just stick with us and we'll jump into lesson number 2.